You ever catch yourself staring at the ceiling in the dark, dead silent, phone face down, heart on replay? Same story, different woman, same confusion, same ending, same weight in your chest, like something hollow just won't fill? You keep running those memories back, like maybe there's a detail you missed. A word, a shift, a sign, but deep down you already know it's not a one-off, it's not bad luck, it's a pattern, yours. And once you spot the pattern, it haunts you. You can't unsee it. It's not in the big fights or breakups, it's in the feel of it all. The way everything's amazing, then suddenly off. The way emotional closeness flips to distance without warning, like you're watching someone vanish in slow motion but acting like that's normal. And what hurts more than the silence is pretending not to notice. You start questioning yourself. Maybe you just picked the wrong woman again. Maybe next time if you communicate better, don't get too attached, give more space, show more intention, maybe then she'll stay. You tell yourself it's just a learning curve, a matter of timing, a few tweaks away from lasting love. That logic gives you hope, gives you permission to run it back one more time. But then the cracks widen. You start to realize this isn't about timing or effort, it's about perspective. You were taught that if you just show up, stay loyal, act with purpose, everything should align, that feelings follow formulas, that love rewards consistency. But real attraction doesn't work like that, does it? You can do everything right and still watch her pull away like you did something wrong. You feel it in your gut. That shift. One day she's all smiling, leaning in, calling just to hear your voice. The next, something's off. Her tone changes, her texts slow down, energy drops without explanation. And the scariest part, you can't trace it back to anything you did. That's when the panic creeps in. Not because you did too little, but because you have no control over what changed. You start realizing that her "I miss you" meant exactly what it meant in that moment. Her "I've never felt this way before" wasn't a lifetime promise, it was a present tense truth. You took her words as anchors. She meant them like currents. She was speaking in waves, but you were hearing stone. And when that wave passes, you're still standing there, waiting for her to mean it again, hoping you can pull her back in with presence, patience, or performance. But the tide doesn't care how hard you try. That's when the light cuts through. It's not about effort. It's not about luck. You've been in the grip of your own illusion, and now that illusion is cracking. And that crack is where growth begins. Here's what nobody warned you about. Certainty has a shelf life you can't read. When she whispers she feels safe with you, she means it right then. When she says you're different, you're special, you're the one that truth belongs to that moment, not tomorrow, not next month, not forever, just now. You didn't hear it that way. You heard foundation, you heard future, you heard forever. She was describing the weather, you were building a house on it, and when the sky changed, you stood there soaking wet, wondering what went wrong. That's why endings feel like whiplash. 1 week you're everything, next week you're a stranger she's trying to forget. You're left holding two versions of the same person, trying to figure out which one was the lie. Neither was. Both were real, just not at the same time. And she doesn't owe you an explanation for the shift. That's the part that stings. Now, here's where it gets worse. You thought giving more would lock things down. More time, more effort, more understanding, more bending. You figured if you just kept showing up, kept proving yourself, she'd eventually feel secure enough to stay. But the opposite happened. The more you gave, the less she valued it. Not because kindness is weak, but because you stopped being a challenge. You became predictable, safe, boring. You lost your edge trying to keep the peace. You abandoned your center trying to hold her close. And the moment you did, something in her shifted. She didn't respect it. She couldn't. Because people don't lean into someone who's off balance. They step back. And then there's the trap of emotional availability. You opened up. You shared. You listened. You were present. You thought that's what connection required. But somewhere along the way, you got reassigned. Not as her lover, as her therapist, her comfort zone, her safe place to land. Those roles matter, but they don't spark desire. They don't create tension. They don't make her think about you when you're gone. You confused emotional intimacy with romantic attraction. They're not the same. One makes her feel understood. The other makes her feel alive. And if you're only giving her the first, someone else might show up offering the second. Then come the arguments. You think they're about words, about tone, about what she said or what you forgot. But arguments don't start when voices rise. They start before the conversation even begins. Something already shifted underneath. The fight is just the surface crack. You're trying to solve what's visible while the real fracture runs deep beneath. And here's the hard part. You can't logic your way out. You can't communicate your way back in. Because by the time she's arguing, she's already somewhere else emotionally. You're debating the smoke while the fire already spread. Time shows you what emotion hides. You start seeing the same movie play out with different actors. Same beginning, same middle, same fade to black. First it's exciting, electric, can't get enough energy, then it levels off into comfort. Then invisible becomes taken for granted. Then you're suddenly too much or not enough, and you're not even sure which. Different women, identical arc, and that's when it clicks. This isn't about him. Turns out you were playing a role. The reliable guy, the steady one, the one who never leaves. And that role doesn't keep attraction alive, it kills it slowly. You notice how excitement dies the second certainty sets in. The moment she knows you're not going anywhere, something shifts. Not always immediately, but eventually. The text gets slower, the effort drops, the warmth cools, not because she's cruel, because human nature craves what it doesn't fully have, and you gave her everything up front. You also see how respect changes when you stop being a question mark, when your schedule revolves around hers, when your boundaries bend on command, when you're always available, always understanding, always flexible. You thought that made you valuable. It made you furniture, present but unnoticed, useful but not desired. Then there's consistency. You were raised to believe consistency builds trust. And it does. But it also builds predictability. And predictability is the silent killer of attraction. She knows exactly what you'll say, exactly how you'll react, exactly where you'll be. There's no mystery, no tension, no edge, just comfort. And comfort without polarity is a slow death. Here's the lesson that flips everything. Your feelings don't create her obligation. Caring harder doesn't make her stay. Loving deeper doesn't stabilize chaos. You can feel more than she does, and it means absolutely nothing. Your investment doesn't guarantee her return. Your commitment doesn't obligate her continuation. She can walk away from your depth without guilt, without second thought, without looking back. That truth levels you the first time it lands. Because you operated under fairness. You thought love was reciprocal. That energy matched energy. That showing up mattered, and it does. Just not the way you thought. Showing up doesn't make someone choose you. It just shows you're choosing them. And if they're not choosing back with equal weight, you're not building together. You're performing alone. Once you accept that, something inside you breaks open. Not in a bad way. In a freeing way. You stop chasing reassurance you can't earn. You stop negotiating for affection that should be freely given. You stop trying to prove your worth to someone who can't see it. And for the first time, maybe ever, you start relating to women from a place of clarity instead of desperation. You stop needing the outcome. You start observing the reality. And reality, when you finally face it, is the only thing that sets you free. Once clarity starts forming, you notice something that messes with your head. The harder you tried to lock things down, the faster they fell apart. Every time you reached for certainty, it slipped through your fingers like water. You weren't wrong for wanting stability, you just didn't realize that grabbing for it kills it. Attraction doesn't respond to pressure, it retreats from it. You start replaying moments that used to confuse you. The coldness that came from nowhere, the irritation over nothing, the way her energy dropped without explanation. Back then you thought you missed something critical, some word, some action, some invisible line you crossed. Now you see it differently. Nothing dramatic happened, her internal state just shifted, and when that shift occurs, your logic has zero power. That's why explanations never worked. You could articulate yourself perfectly, stay calm, take responsibility, communicate like a therapist, and still watch things crumble. Not because your words lack clarity, because attraction doesn't care about words, it responds to energy, to presence, to gravitational pull. You can't argue someone into wanting you. You can't explain them into staying. Desire isn't a negotiation. Here's another brutal truth. Comfort and desire aren't the same thing. Comfort feels safe, warm, familiar, easy. But desire needs friction, not fights, not drama, not games, just polarity. When you became too available, too agreeable, too eager to smooth every rough edge, the spark died. You thought you were building trust. You were erasing contrast. This is where most men get stuck. They try to bring desire back by doing more of what killed it. More reassurance, more availability, more understanding, more bending. and every time they do, the gap widens. You start carrying the entire relationship on your back, and the heavier it gets, the less she respects the load you're carrying. You also notice how often attraction faded the moment you made her your center, when your plans started revolving around hers, when your goals took a back seat, when your identity blurred into the relationship, not because ambition disappeared, because focus shifted, and women feel that shift before you even realize it happened. When you make someone the axis of your world, they don't feel honored, they feel burdened. That weight crushes attraction. What hurts most isn't the loss. It's realizing how many red flags you ignored to keep the fantasy alive. You overlooked inconsistency because the highs felt real. You tolerated confusion because you thought clarity was just one conversation away. You gave chance after chance because walking away felt like giving up. But you weren't blind, you were hopeful. And hope, when it replaces observation, becomes dangerous. Hope fills gaps with imagination. It turns patterns into exceptions. It makes you believe this time will be different, and the longer you live inside that hope, the harder it becomes to leave. Because leaving means admitting the version you believed in never actually existed. It was potential, not reality. Promise, not proof. And that admission cuts deeper than the ending itself. What follows that realization isn't rage. It's something quieter, heavier, a strange blend of peace and grief sitting side by side. You're not mourning her specifically. You're mourning the man who believed showing up was enough. The man who thought loyalty would be rewarded without being tested. The man who assumed if he just loved hard enough, it would be matched. Letting go of that version of yourself feels like shedding skin. Painful but necessary. You don't become bitter. You become awake, and waking up changes how you see everything that came before. You start noticing something counterintuitive. Attraction peaked when you weren't trying to control it. Those moments when you were locked into your own world, focused on your goals, building something that had nothing to do with her. That's when she leaned in hardest. That's when the texts came faster. That's when she wondered about you instead of taking you for granted. But the moment you slowed down, the moment you made her the priority, the moment you started checking in, seeking reassurance, trying to secure the bond, when distance crept in, at the time it felt backwards. Now it makes perfect sense. You weren't being attentive, you were being anxious, and anxiety repels. This is when you understand why chasing clarity always backfired. Every time you tried to define things, pin down feelings, get confirmation that everything was okay, something subtle broke. Not because communication is bad, because attraction hates being cornered. It needs room to breathe, space to move, freedom to choose. The tighter you gripped, the faster it slipped away. You also realize how often you misread her emotional shifts as personal attacks. Her mood changed and you panicked. Her energy dropped and you scrambled. Her tone shifted and you went into fix-it mode. But most of those shifts had nothing to do with you. They were her internal weather, and your reaction to that weather defined everything. When you responded with anxiety, you looked shaken. When you sought immediate reassurance, you looked desperate. When you tried to talk through every fluctuation, you looked unstable. People don't lean into instability, they pull back. Your reaction became the problem even when there wasn't one. Looking back, you can trace exactly when respect started fading. It wasn't during a big fight. There was no dramatic betrayal. It happened in small surrenders, times you swallowed your truth to avoid conflict, moments you over-explained when silence would have been stronger, instances where you abandoned your position just to keep the peace. Respect doesn't collapse loudly, it erodes quietly. Every time you gave up ground you shouldn't have, every time you tolerated behavior that crossed your line, every time you chose her comfort over your integrity, you thought you were being mature, being understanding, being the bigger person. But she didn't see sacrifice, she saw weakness. And weakness, no matter how well-intentioned, doesn't inspire devotion. It invites exit. This is where most men get strength completely wrong. They think it means enduring, absorbing, outlasting the storm, proving commitment for how much they can tolerate. They wear their patience like a badge, their flexibility like armor, their willingness to stay, no matter what, as proof of love. But real strength isn't about how much you can take. It's about knowing when to stop giving access, when to pull back without announcing it, when to let silence speak louder than any conversation ever could. Just grounded stillness that doesn't need validation. There's an uncomfortable moment where you finally admit part of the pain was self-inflicted. You wanted her reality to match yours. You wanted her words to carry permanent weight. You wanted those emotional peaks to mean something lasting. Accepting they were temporary feels like betrayal at first, until you realize the real betrayal was expecting them to be more than they ever were. Once you stop romanticizing chaos, your standards shift without effort. Intensity alone stops impressing you. Drama stops feeling like passion. Hot and cold stops resembling excitement. You start paying attention to different things. How does she act when nothing exciting is happening? How does she show up during ordinary days? How does she handle silence and stillness and routine? Because that's where truth lives, not in the sparks, not in the highs, not in the honeymoon glow. Truth lives in the ordinary, in the boring Tuesday nights, in the moments when nothing is being tested. Consistency during calm reveals more than passion during storms. This shift doesn't make connection easier to find, it makes it harder actually. Because now you see through the surface faster. You disengage from confusion quicker. You stop giving extended chances to situations that feel off from the start. Ambiguity doesn't intrigue you anymore, it irritates you. Mixed signals don't challenge you, they disqualify. Fewer connections make it past your filter now. But the ones that do feel completely different. They don't drain you, they don't confuse you. They don't require constant maintenance just to stay afloat. They feel real because they are real. Grounded, mutual, and maybe that's the most brutal realization of all. Most of your pain didn't come from cruelty. It came from misalignment you refused to accept. You tried to force fit pieces that were never meant to connect. You worked overtime trying to make something function that was broken from the start. Once you see that, the fight leaves you. Not your strength, not your standards, just a fight. You stop battling outcomes you can't control. You stop demanding closure that won't come. You stop asking why when behavior already gave you the answer. You finally understand that attraction reveals itself through action, not intention, not potential, not words. Action, consistent, repeated, undeniable action. And from that understanding, you start moving forward without dragging the past behind you. Something changes in how people respond to you now. Not because you learn new tricks, not because you're playing games, but because you stop leaking neediness everywhere you went. There's nothing to exploit anymore, no insecurity to poke at, no desperation to sense. And that absence creates a different kind of presence, one that commands respect without asking for it. You're no longer pulled into emotional storms that aren't yours to weather. When her mood shifts, you don't scramble. When tension rises, you don't panic. You let others own their internal chaos without making it your emergency. That boundary isn't cold, it's clean, and clean emotional space is rare enough that people feel it immediately. There's new honesty in how you experience attraction now. You don't inflate it, don't dramatize it, don't attach stories or timelines or expectations to it. You let it exist without forcing meaning onto it. That restraint keeps your vision clear and your footing steady. You start understanding that some relationships were never meant to last, not because anyone failed, but because the dynamic itself couldn't sustain. You weren't losing something real, you were releasing something that demanded too much while returning too little. That recognition doesn't harden you, it liberates you. You stop seeing endings as personal failures. They become signals instead. They're indicators that something couldn't survive without force. And anything requiring force to stay alive eventually exhausts the person providing it. You're done being that person. This awareness sharpens your patience. You don't rush connection anymore. Don't accelerate intimacy. Don't push for commitment before trust has proven itself. You let things develop at whatever pace feels natural, and if nothing develops, you accept that without resentment or obsession. There's internal dignity growing now that you've stopped auditioning to be chosen. You realize choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's foundational. Without that bedrock, no relationship can stand without extracting pieces of your soul to support it. You notice how little drama exists when expectations aren't assumed. You don't expect people to be anything beyond what they've demonstrated. That removes disappointment before it forms, keeps your emotional world uncluttered, leaves room for genuine surprise instead of constant letdown. By now, you're no longer reacting to connection, you're responding to it calmly, intentionally, from a centered place that doesn't shift based on someone else's mood or actions. Whatever enters your life from here arrives without chaos attached, without confusion clouding it, without requiring you to abandon yourself to keep it alive. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. Stop imagining perfect scenarios where the right words fix everything. You no longer need to manage perception because you're no longer chasing outcomes. That mental freedom opens space you didn't know was occupied. Space to simply exist, to observe, to breathe. Your intuition returns stronger than before, not as paranoid reaction, but as quiet knowing. When something feels off, you don't rush to correct it. You let it reveal itself, and it always does. What surprises you most is how normal the stillness starts to feel. At first it seems strange, almost wrong, like something was missing because emotions weren't constantly stirred. But slowly you recognize this is what stability actually tastes like. Not excitement, not tension, just quiet groundedness that doesn't demand attention to exist. You notice how differently you listen now. Not waiting for your turn to speak. Not analyzing every word for hidden meaning. Just present, absorbing, letting people reveal themselves without rushing to interpret everything personally. You catch things you used to miss, the hesitation, the inconsistencies, the gap between what's spoken and what's shown. You stop being hypnotized by beautiful words. Pretty promises don't move you anymore. Declarations without follow-through bounce right off. You're anchored in what's demonstrated, what's repeated, what survives time without constant reinforcement. Your intuition sharpens into something reliable. When something feels misaligned, you don't argue with that feeling anymore. Don't rationalize it away. Don't convince yourself you're overreacting. You trust the signal. Watch patterns emerge without forcing conclusions. What once triggered anxiety barely registers now. Delayed responses, shifted tones, temporary distance. These don't send you spiraling anymore. They're just information. Daishin, Insinto Arvai, and data received calmly gives you power instead of stealing your peace. You carry yourself differently without trying, not louder, not colder, just settled. You enter rooms without hoping to be noticed, engage conversations without needing approval, meet new people without secretly auditioning for their acceptance. That posture shifts every dynamic before words are exchanged. There's quiet pride in knowing you won't abandon yourself anymore. Not for connection, not for comfort, not for the illusion of love. Your values aren't negotiable now. Your boundaries aren't suggestions. And that self-respect radiates before you ever speak about it. You stop chasing potential entirely. People are who they show themselves to be right now, not who they could become under perfect conditions, not who they were during their best moments. Right now, that focus prevents emotional debt from piling up, keeps your investments honest. What replaces old frustration is acceptance, not defeat, understanding. Connection can exist without permanence. Attraction can be real without lasting. Walking away doesn't erase what happened, it just honors what is. By now, these lessons have reshaped you quietly. From the inside out, you're not closed off, you're centered, not hardened, composed. You no longer chase meaning in relationships, you let meaning find you where you stand. And here's the final truth that holds everything together. When you stop chasing emotional certainty and start living from internal stability, relationships transform. They stop being things you survive. They become things you choose, freely, clearly, without fear driving the selection. Not everyone will understand this version of you. That's fine. You're not for everyone anymore. You're for the ones who recognize stillness as strength. And that distinction changes everything that follows. And here's the final truth that holds everything together. When you stop chasing emotional certainty and start living from internal stability, relationships transform. They stop being things you survive. They become things you choose, freely, clearly, without fear driving the selection. Not everyone will understand this version of you. That's fine. You're not for everyone anymore. You're for the ones who recognize stillness as strength, clarity as confidence, presence as power. And that distinction changes everything that follows. If this hit different, subscribe. More truth coming your way.